The wind howled. It clawed at the desolate moor, a symphony of despair. Twilight bled across the sky, painting the heather in hues of bruised violet and blood orange. Shadows stretched, reaching out from the scattered, gnarled trees like grasping claws. This was a place forgotten by time, swallowed by the suffocating embrace of solitude. Here on this wind-whipped expanse stood the house of Evernight. The house was a monolith, a testament to decay and despair. Its stone walls, once proud, were now scarred and stained. Ivy, thick as a man's arm, snaked across its surface, a living shroud. Windows, like vacant eyes, stared out at the moor, reflecting the dying light in a malevolent gleam. The air itself seemed to crackle with an unseen energy, a palpable aura of dread that clung to the house like a shroud. Legends whispered on the wind. Tales of the house, passed down through generations, spoke of a darkness that resided within its walls, a hunger that could never be sated. It was a place of whispers and shadows, where reality itself seemed to warp and twist. Some claimed the house was cursed, a conduit to a realm beyond human comprehension. Others spoke of a figure, a solitary being consumed by an unspeakable evil. He was the master of Evernight, they said, a creature who revelled in the suffering of others. His name, uttered in hushed tones, sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened souls. Malachi Graves. Malachi Graves was an enigma, a puzzle box constructed of shadows and secrets. His face, pale as bone, was a mask of aristocratic beauty marred by a chilling emptiness. His eyes, dark and fathomless, seemed to devour the light, reflecting an ancient, unyielding malice. He was a creature of the night, his movements fluid and silent, his presence exuding an aura of both power and decay. Graves was a recluse, shunning human contact. He preferred the company of darkness, the whispers of the wind against the crumbling stone of his ancestral home. Yet, rumours persisted of his dark predilections, of a hunger that gnawed at his soul, a hunger that could only be sated by the terror and despair of others. The invitation arrived on the wings of a storm, a heavy parchment, sealed with crimson wax, bearing the sigil of the House of Evernight. It was addressed to Edgar North, a scholar with a penchant for the macabre, a man drawn to the darkness like a moth to a flickering flame. The invitation spoke of a gathering, a grand soiree to be held on the night of the full moon. Curiosity warred with trepidation within Edgar's heart. He had heard the whispers, the chilling tales of the House of Evernight and its enigmatic master. But something about the invitation, about the promise of glimpsing the darkness that lurked within those ancient walls, called to him. It was a siren song, a whispered promise of forbidden knowledge. The night of the gathering arrived, cloaked in a silence so profound it was almost deafening. The moon, full and heavy in the sky, cast an eerie silver glow upon the moor, painting the landscape in shades of grey. Edgar's carriage, drawn by a pair of skittish horses, lumbered across the uneven ground, the only sound the creak of the wheels and the driver's nervous coughs. As they drew closer to the house, Edgar felt a chill run down his spine. The air grew heavy, oppressive, as if a weight had settled upon his chest. He could feel the gaze of the house upon him, those vacant windows watching his every move. A sense of foreboding washed over him, a primal instinct screaming at him to turn back, to flee from this place of shadows. The carriage shuddered to a halt before the imposing gates of Evernight. The iron was cold beneath Edgar's touch, the intricate design strangely unsettling. As the gates creaked open, revealing a long, winding drive, Edgar felt a shiver run down his spine. He had crossed a threshold, stepped from the realm of the known into the heart of the unknown. The drive seemed to stretch on forever, the trees that lined it twisting and contorting, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The silence was absolute, broken only by the crunch of the carriage wheels on the gravel. It was as if the world itself held its breath, watching, waiting to see what fate awaited the lone traveller who dared to venture into the domain of Malachi graves. Section 7. Within the belly of the beast. The house of Evernight loomed before him, a monolith of darkness against the moonlit sky. Edgar stepped down from the carriage, his heart pounding in his chest. He felt a presence here, a palpable aura of malice that seemed to seep from the very stones of the house. The air was thick with the scent of decay, of things long dead and best forgotten. A figure materialized from the shadows, tall and gaunt, his face obscured by the hood of his cloak. He moved with an unsettling grace, his eyes, 2 points of cold fire, boring into Edgar's. "Master Graves awaits," the figure rasped, his voice a dry whisper that seemed to cling to the night air. Edgar felt a shiver run down his spine. He had entered the belly of the beast. Section 8. A Feast of Shadows. The interior of the house was a labyrinth of shadows and flickering candlelight. Dust motes danced in the air, swirling like lost souls in the oppressive silence. Cobwebs, thick as shrouds, draped the furniture, and the air hung heavy with the scent of decay and something else, something ancient and vaguely sinister. Edgar followed the silent figure through the echoing halls, his footsteps muffled by the thick carpets. He entered a grand dining hall, the long mahogany table groaning beneath the weight of a lavish feast. Silver glinted in the candlelight, and crystal goblets sparkled, filled with a dark, viscous liquid that resembled blood. At the head of the table sat Malachi Graves, his pale face illuminated by a single flickering candle. His eyes, dark and unblinking, met Edgar's across the expanse of the table, and Edgar felt a chill run down his spine. Section 9. The Snare closes. The dinner was an eerie affair. The food, though exquisitely prepared, tasted as cold and lifeless as the house itself. Graves spoke little, his silences punctuated by the clinking of silverware and the occasional unsettling chuckle. Edgar tried to engage him in conversation, to pierce the veils of mystery that surrounded the man. But his attempts were met with cryptic pronouncements and unsettling smiles. As the night wore on, Edgar felt his unease grow into full-blown terror. The shadows in the room seemed to writhe and twist, taking on monstrous forms. The portraits on the walls, their eyes seeming to follow his every move, filled him with a sense of dread. He realized with a sickening certainty that he was not a guest in this house, but a prisoner. He had stumbled into a trap, lured by his own curiosity and the dark allure of Malachi Graves. Section 10. Evernight's Embrace. Panic welled within Edgar. He excused himself from the table, his heart pounding against his ribs. He had to escape this place, to break free from the suffocating grip of Evernight. But as he turned to flee, he found himself face to face with the silent figure who had led him inside. The figure's eyes glowed with an eerie light, and Edgar realized, with a growing sense of horror, that there was no escape. The house of Evernight held him fast, its presence a suffocating weight upon his soul. He was trapped, another victim claimed by the darkness that resided within those ancient walls. The house stood silent on the moor, its windows like vacant eyes, watching, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to fall prey to its sinister embrace. The night was still, the only sound the mournful cry of the wind, a mournful dirge for the lost and the damned.